top 5 natural solutions for your health. Mary up front asked me to come speak to you all. So my goal here and intent is just to help you out and just give you some really high quality information, and then you'll be on your way. This handout is yours to keep. My name is Lance McGowan, also known as the Tropical Smoothie Guy. So you can find me on Instagram, and there you go. So, okay. Tropical Smoothie Guy. Yep. So a little bit about myself is that my mom, she actually had triple bypass surgery when I was 14, and she's on a number of medications today for blood pressure and cholesterol and stomach pain. And then my dad, he passed away in 1997 due to throat cancer, and he had an allergic reaction to the chemo. And so I had a very strong motivation to not go down their road and focus on really nutrition and really helping the body heal from the inside out. And so when we think about some of the top 5 health concerns for yourself or for your future clients, this is what this is about. So the first statistic I'll start off, which is problem number 1, stress. Whether that's through deadlines or homework or tests or other things like that. You can probably fill in the blank of what that looks like for you, but 75 to 90% of doctor visits in the US are due to stress-related ailments, and that's the first statistic you see there in box number 1. So most doctor visits are because we're just overly stressed. Now you think of stress as kind of like what's going on in the mind, you're like, like that, but a lot of it's very cellular. So you have trillions of cells in your body, and so that's what this little chart is describing. So free radicals can damage cellular DNA, your mitochondria, which are the little engines of your cells, if you want to think of them that way, and other critical cell structures. And then when you look at those free radicals, it causes short-term cellular damage that can trigger a defensive response in your cells. And then on top of that, cells, tissues, and organs become more prone to oxidative stressors. And then on top of that, damaged cells can lead to unhealthy aging. So some of you are like, okay, what the heck does all that mean? Well, if you think of it like a hailstorm is barreling down on your car. It busts the windshield open, it causes dents in the side and everything like that, maybe even flattens the tire somehow if it hits it right. So that is what's happening to our cells. They're being bombarded with free radicals based on what I'll talk about, those are, but they're being bombarded. So if your car gets damaged like that, it's going to be pretty hard to drive on the 215 or anywhere else very well. Same thing with our cells, it's going to be very hard for them to get to where they need to effectively. But what are some natural solutions? So this is the ORAC score. Has anyone heard of the ORAC? No? Okay, so this is the first time. Anyone heard of antioxidants?
Yes.
Okay, there we go, we got one. All right, so some people are like, hey, eat a lot of oranges, that'll help you out, right? Oranges are actually 750 on the ORAC score, so that measures how much antioxidant ability. You want antioxidants because those are kind of like the parking garage, if you want to think of it that way, from all that hailstorm. And so, oranges at 750, blueberries, you heard like, oh, eat some blueberries, those are really good antioxidants. Those are 2,400 on that scale, and then pomegranates are 3,000 roughly. But what blows all those out of the water is clove. Clove is over 1 million in the ORAC score. I was actually listening to another CD in my car, and they were talking about, oh, there's some chocolates that have antioxidants and stuff like that, and they're like 16,000, and I was like, okay, well, clove has over 1 million, so that seems like a lot more than that. All right, so that is nature's most powerful antioxidant. So if you're looking for something to help you on a cellular level, that is definitely one thing. The next problem, number 2, is low energy. Anybody have that or know somebody that does? Okay, so when you look at low energy, here's some of the things that rob you of your health. And you can see that they have like little masks and other things like that. I will let you, acknowledge where those are at in your own life. This is a no judge zone. education zone. It doesn't help if there's stuff in the background either. But so the first thing is processed foods. Those are high in omega-6s. Omega-6s cause inflammation on the inside. Processed foods are very acidic. You want to think of acidic promotes sickness, alkaline promotes wellness. Then processed foods destroy the endocrine system. Your endocrine system controls your metabolism, your appetite, your hormones. So when we eat these processed foods, they're messing up a lot of things. The next is refined oils. You can find these in fried foods. You can find these in store-bought oils. And those are high in omega-6s too, because they high heat treat those oils to make sure they're shelf stable. So they'll stay on the shelf for a really long time. And so that causes issues with our body as well when we eat those. MSG, anyone heard of those before?
Yes.
So monosodium glutamate. That is a neurotoxin, and it causes cravings. So if we're eating those things that have it in it, and it has like 50 different names, so they constantly change it up on the ingredient label, so it's actually really hard to recognize some of them. But they cause cravings, and that's great for the food industry, because if they can produce food that makes you want more of it, hey, that's, more profits, right? The next thing is gluten. You know somebody that has a gluten intolerance, or okay, yep, there you go. So, and the reason why gluten is such an issue, and you can find that in wheat, you can find it in barley, you can find that in rye, is because it's hybridized. And it's been hybridized. They kind of think of like the gray wolf, and now you got everything from the Great Dane to the little small teacup poodle. We've kind of messed with nature to produce what the desired result we want. We want cute little puppies all the way up to, I think I just saw a mastiff at the Starbucks today. It was huge. It looked like, I don't know, it was huge. It was huge, like the size of the table. But anyways, so they've done that with the wheat, is my point. So they've hybridized it to make it to survive in drought, in harsh conditions, but what that does is it makes it more of a foreign protein to our gut, and it can affect the villi, which are they're tiny little things in your intestinal lining that help absorb nutrients. And so it destroys those over time. And so what we want to do is ideally avoid gluten, but gluten is in almost everything. The next thing is dairy. So I might make some enemies with this one because dairy is really hard to avoid, but dairy is very acidic. It has a hormone called IGF-1, and IGF-1 tells your cells to grow. It's basically what allows an 80-pound calf to turn into a 400-pound cow. It's baby calf growth formula. That's what milk is, or anything dairy. And we're the only species that actually drinks another mammal's lactation secretions, to put it lightly. But and this can cause lactose intolerance. Anybody know somebody that struggles with lactose intolerance? And that's because the milk is not safe for human consumption, raw milk. So the government says it needs to be pasteurized. Pasteurized is a fancy word for saying heat treated. So when you heat treat anything, it kills everything in it. It kills the lactase enzyme. Lactase breaks down lactose. So if you have lactose intolerance, your body's saying, I don't know what to do with all this lactose, so I'm going to probably have issues. So that's what's happening in our body. So there's a lot of ripple effects with that. And it's interesting because cheese, they actually put the enzyme back in so you don't have as much digestion issues, but it's still acidic. So lots of issues with dairy. There's like 10 other things. That's for a whole other class, but just know that the little 4 things mentioned here, that's what it can affect. All right? The next thing is coffee. Coffee's acidic. I know I told you I'm gonna make some enemies today. Okay, so coffee, and then there's also caffeine crashes. Okay, so you get crashes. So when we're looking at, again, low energy, these are things that affect that. Soft drinks, they're acidic as well. They're empty calories, even if they're the full, the regular sugar with the high fructose corn syrup, or they're neurotoxin with the diet stuff. So it's aspartame, and they've actually replaced aspartame with sucralose, which is going from worst to bad. So it's a little bit better, but it's not good. So those things aren't good for us. And whether it's soft drinks or dairy, they have a very interesting effect on the body. Have you ever heard the saying, milk does a body good, or all those things like that? Well, when you drink those things, they cause a process called metabolic acidosis. It's a very fancy word of saying it's acidic. And what our body does is then say, hey, I've got all this acidity, I need to create a buffer and protect the rest of my body. So the body literally pulls calcium from the bones in order to protect the rest of your body, which is why we're the nation with the highest production of milk, the highest consumption of milk, but we also have the highest incidence of, can you guess what type of low bone density issue? Osteoporosis. Yeah, so we have the highest of all those. And it's because we're often said, yeah, milk does a body good if you're a baby calf. Milk does a body good if you're a baby drinking a mother's milk, but not as an adult. It's really not designed for adult consumption. Although we put it in everything now, and now it's pretty much tradition, and if you don't drink it, you're weird, right? So that's pretty much how we've done things now. So that's enough of the Donald Downer. Let's talk about some natural solutions. So have you heard of the concept of vibrational frequencies?
Yes.
Or maybe even heard the song, giving off good vibration, Okay, so what is really, really low? What gives off a low vibration? And this is kind of like chemistry class. It's molecular vibrations, everything kind of